Lucas Jones was the kind of man the world envied. Handsome, wealthy, and heir to one of the largest resort chains in the country, he had everything many people dreamed of. Yet, Lucas was tired. His nights were filled with lavish parties, surrounded by people dazzled by his wealth, but an inexplicable emptiness seemed to grow within him. He wondered what had changed. He'd always had everything: fleeting romances, exotic cars, a private jet, and more money than he could spend in a lifetime. But lately, none of it seemed to fill the void he felt. Something was missing, something he had never known he needed. It was another night at one of his resorts. The hall was packed with elegant people, loud music reverberated, and champagne flowed endlessly. Despite the luxury and extravagance, Lucas felt out of place. Leaning against the bar, he stared at the glass of champagne in his hand as if searching for answers in its golden bubbles. "Lucas, you should be enjoying life. Why the long face?" asked Richard, his best friend and business partner, slapping him on the shoulder to get his attention. Lucas sighed. "Maybe because none of this makes sense." "I don't know, Richard." Richard raised an eyebrow, almost incredulous. "Are you crazy? Man, you've got everything. Look around. Money, women, cars. What more could you want?" Lucas just shrugged, offering no response. He stood up, leaving the glass on the counter, and headed for the balcony. The sound of waves crashing on the shore was like a distant melody, muffled by the relentless beat of electronic music echoing through the hall. Richard wasn't ready to give up. "See that gorgeous woman over there checking you out? Go talk to her. I'm sure she'll cheer you up." Lucas followed his friend's gaze. The woman was stunning, no doubt, but he felt no desire to approach her. "Not tonight, man. Not tonight," he replied with a weak smile. That night, for the first time in a long while, Lucas returned to his room alone. The space was luxurious, with a massive bed, breathtaking ocean views, and furniture worthy of a design magazine. But as he lay down, he realized something that scared him. Even amidst all this luxury, he felt profoundly empty. The next morning, Lucas was back to his routine. During a meeting with his team, he was introduced to a new project: the acquisition of Sunnyvale Ranch, a rural property with significant potential to become another luxury resort. The presentation was detailed, filled with charts, maps, and images of the location. Sarah, his assistant, displayed photos of the property on a large screen. The ranch boasts breathtaking landscapes, with the potential to attract a sophisticated clientele. The local workers are simple and dedicated, which could ease the transition. As the photos rolled by, something caught Lucas's attention. Among the images was a photo of the ranch workers. His eyes lingered on one woman. She had a slightly tired expression, but there was something about her face that captivated him. She seemed real, unpretentious, without any masks or artifices. Lucas felt a pang in his chest, something he couldn't explain. "Lucas?" Sarah called, interrupting his thoughts. "What do you think of the project?" Lucas blinked a few times before answering. "It's interesting, but we're not closing the deal just yet. I want to visit the site before we move forward." The room fell silent. Sarah looked at him, confused. "But Mr. Jones, the acquisition has already been approved by everyone. You've never wanted to visit a property before buying it." Lucas straightened in his chair, adopting a firm tone. "That changes today. I want to understand what we're buying before we destroy it." No one dared to question him. Dressed in simple clothes and a battered hat, Lucas Jones stepped off an old bus that stopped in front of Sunny Acres Ranch. The country air was different, fresh and pure, so unlike the enclosed, luxurious environments he was used to. He carried a small backpack and managed a humble smile, trying to convince himself he was ready for his new identity. As he passed through the ranch's wooden gate, he spotted Logan, the foreman. A burly man with a thick mustache and a suspicious gaze, Logan leaned against a fence, watching Lucas as if he already knew the newcomer wouldn't last long. "Hi, I'm Luke. I'm looking for work," Lucas said, trying to sound casual. "Luke, huh? Well, let's see what you can do." Logan replied with a mocking laugh. He crossed his arms and sized Lucas up from head to toe. The work here's tough. You think you can handle it? You look strong, but have you worked on a ranch before? He asked doubtfully. Lucas hesitated for a moment, but memories of his family's ranch flooded his mind. His childhood days spent wandering the fields, watching the ranch hands at work. Though he had never done the labor himself, he thought observing it might have taught him enough to fake it. Yes, I worked on a ranch when I was younger, he lied, his voice steady with confidence. I know I can handle it. Logan scratched his chin, weighing the response. That's what you say, but talk's easy. I need to test you, he said in a calm but challenging tone. Lucas was led to a large, dimly lit barn stacked with feed bags. Inside, Logan pointed to the bags and explained, There are 50 sacks here. I want you to load them all onto that truck outside. Then, clean the stables. Let's see if you're cut out for this. Lucas looked at the sacks. Each one seemed to weigh a ton. He almost gave up right then, but something inside him urged him to press on. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was the desire to prove to himself that he was more than just a spoiled billionaire heir. Rolling up his sleeves, he got to work. Sweat dripped down Lucas's face as he carried sack after sack. His hands, used to the soft touch of crystal glasses and luxury car steering wheels, now burned from the rough texture of the feed bags. When he finally finished, he sat down for a moment, breathing heavily. It's not over yet, Luke, Logan said with a sly grin. The stables are waiting. Lucas dragged himself to the stables where the strong smell and the filth made him gag. He grabbed a shovel and began cleaning, thinking about how time seemed to stretch endlessly. Meanwhile, Logan stood by, laughing at the rookie's lack of skill. When Lucas finally finished the tasks, he was exhausted, filthy, and utterly disheveled. Logan approached him with a satisfied smile. You worked hard, the foreman said, giving Lucas a firm pat on the shoulder. I'll approve you. Looks like you need a change of scenery, and you'll find it here. The folks who work here are good people, and Miss Elvira is like a mother to everyone. Lucas forced a smile. Every muscle in his body ached, but Logan's approval was a small step toward keeping his plan on track. While Logan and Lucas talked, Mary watched from a distance. A young woman with sharp eyes and her hair tied in a messy bun, she exuded a quiet strength. Standing next to her was Alicia, her 9-year-old daughter, clutching a patchwork doll with one arm mended. Alicia, naturally curious, couldn't hide her interest in the new worker. Mom, who is he? She asked, pointing at Lucas. A new helper, sweetie, Mary replied, keeping her eyes on Lucas. But don't stare. It's rude. Alicia, however, wasn't one to follow rules easily. She continued staring at Lucas, wrinkling her nose as if trying to figure him out. He looks strange, Alicia whispered to her mom. Mary chuckled softly and tousled her daughter's hair. Leave the man alone. I'm sure he's trying his best. As she watched Lucas struggle to stay upright after the grueling test, Mary felt something unexpected, a warm feeling in her chest, a mix of curiosity and sympathy. But she quickly pushed the thoughts aside. She had enough problems to deal with, and besides, she didn't trust strangers. Later, as the sun began to set and a gentle breeze swept across the ranch, Lucas walked toward the makeshift quarters Logan had prepared for him. His steps were slow, his muscles aching from the heavy labor. Then, on the path, he crossed paths with Mary and Alicia. When their eyes met, Lucas felt his heart skip a beat. It's her, the woman from the photo, he thought, immediately recognizing the face that had intrigued him during the project presentation. He didn't know what this unexpected feeling was, but something about it felt different, as if all the exhaustion of the day faded for a moment. Alicia, with her innocent curiosity, broke the silence. She looked at Lucas with wide eyes, clearly analyzing his sorry state. You're so dirty, the girl commented bluntly, pointing at the mud stains on his clothes and the dust covering his face. Lucas laughed, adjusting his hat to hide his embarrassment. Yeah, looks like I've got a lot to learn around here. Mary tried to hold back her laughter, but ended up letting a smile escape. If you really want to work here, you'll need more than strength. she said with a lightly teasing tone. Patience helps too. Lucas, surprised by Mary's direct response, replied with a sincere smile. I'll remember that. Sounds like good advice. Alicia, still gazing at Lucas with her curious eyes, tilted her head to the side. You talk funny, she said innocently. Mary looked visibly embarrassed and pulled her daughter closer. Sorry, she's just very curious. It's no problem, Lucas replied, still laughing. I guess I am a little different. He hesitated for a moment before deciding to introduce himself. I'm Luke. I just started here. Mary tilted her head slightly, as if assessing his words. Then, with a friendly gesture, she replied, I'm Mary, and this is my daughter, Alicia. Alicia waved excitedly. Hi, Uncle Luke. Nice to meet you both, Lucas said, trying to keep his composure. He felt something strange in his chest, a mix of nervousness and curiosity. Welcome to the ranch, Mary said with a polite smile. I'm sure we'll see each other around. As Mary and Alicia walked away, Lucas stood still for a moment, watching them. He couldn't shake the thought that Mary was different from any other woman he had ever met. There was something genuine about her, something he couldn't find in his world of luxury and superficiality. Mary, on the other hand, glanced back briefly, her heart unsettled for reasons she couldn't explain. There's something about him, she thought, something out of place. He didn't seem like just another worker passing through the ranch, but she brushed the thought aside, convincing herself it was just her imagination. As they walked back home, Alicia, still full of energy, held her mother's hand and said, He's funny, isn't he? I think I'm going to like Uncle Luke. Mary laughed and tousled her daughter's hair. He seems nice. Let's see if he can handle the ranch's pace. Alicia giggled and, with the simplicity of a child, replied, He'll be fine. I'm going to help him. Mary smiled but said nothing. Deep down, she knew the new worker was different. Who are you, Luke? She wondered as the golden horizon of the ranch illuminated the end of another day. On his way to the quarters, Lucas couldn't get Mary out of his mind. Her simplicity, the honesty in her gestures and gaze, it all seemed like a reality so far removed from everything he knew. For the first time in a long while, he felt disconnected from his own facade. Here, as Luke, he had the chance to be someone else. When he finally reached his quarters, he collapsed onto the makeshift bed, staring up at the wooden ceiling. Mary, he murmured, lost in thought. Who are you? And why do I feel like I need to know more about your life? The day had been exhausting, but something inside him was beginning to awaken. He knew this journey was just starting, and that the woman from the photo, now so real and close, would be an essential part of everything to come. Minutes before drifting off to sleep, Lucas's mind wandered back to his life at the resort. The grand parties, private jet trips, luxury cars, and women always around him. It all felt so distant now, so empty. None of those glamorous moments compared to this new, unexpected feeling he had experienced looking into Mary's eyes or hearing Alicia's spontaneous laughter. For the first time, something real had touched his heart, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to face it. In the days that followed, Lucas continued adapting to ranch life. Logan made sure to give him the toughest jobs, while the other workers watched, laughing and making comments. Mary, however, remained reserved but always kind. She helped him when she could, offering tips and guidance. Alicia, on the other hand, loved finding ways to chat with the new worker, asking questions and playfully pointing out his mistakes. Despite the challenges, Lucas felt like he was beginning to find something there. He didn't yet know what it was, but for the first time in years, the emptiness inside him seemed to be fading. It was a hot afternoon, and Lucas, or Luke as everyone called him, was locked in a personal battle with hay bales. His mission seemed simple, stack them neatly, but the task was proving to be a real challenge. Sweat dripped down his face as he struggled to balance the bales with his trembling hands. No matter how hard he tried, some of them stubbornly tumbled to the ground. Damn, he muttered as one of the bales fell on his foot. Biting back the pain, he crouched down to clean up the mess. That's when Alicia appeared. The little girl watched Lucas curiously, tilting her head as if trying to figure out what he was doing. "Uncle Luke, why can't you get it right?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine curiosity but softened by her innocent smile. Lucas froze for a moment, caught off guard by the girl's frankness. Turning to face her, he tried to mask his embarrassment with a sheepish smile. "Because I'm a little clumsy," he admitted. Alicia giggled, clearly amused by his honesty. "My mom says if you try hard enough, you'll get it," she said matter-of-factly. Mary appeared moments later carrying a bucket of feed. She paused at the sight of the scene, her face lighting up with a warm smile. "Looks like you're being evaluated by an expert," she teased, glancing from Alicia to Lucas. Lucas laughed, though he felt something stir inside him. It was the first time he'd seen someone smile so genuinely. There was no pretense, no hidden agenda, just a simple, radiant moment of lightness. "Well, if I pass Alicia's evaluation, I think I can handle any test," he replied, adjusting his hat in an attempt to sound nonchalant. Mary shook her head, laughing softly. "She's tough but fair," she said, setting the bucket down on the ground. Alicia ran over to her, grabbing her hand. "Do you think Uncle Luke will get the bales stacked without messing up this time, Mom?" Alicia asked, her wide eyes darting between Lucas and Mary with eager anticipation. Mary looked at Lucas with a playful glint in her eyes. "Well, I think he deserves another chance," she said, winking at Alicia. Lucas felt his heart skip a beat but quickly disguised his nervousness. "I promise, next time I'll do better," he said, lifting one of the bales again, this time with extra care. As the days passed, Lucas began to grow closer to Mary and Alicia. He helped with the farm chores despite often making comical mistakes, like trying to milk a cow and ending up with a face full of milk. "You're the clumsiest worker I've ever seen," Mary said, wiping Lucas's face with a cloth. "But at least you've got the right attitude." Evenings on the farm were peaceful, with simple dinners and conversations around the table. Lucas learned about Mary's dreams of opening a community school and the struggles she faced as a single mother. "My biggest fear is that Alicia won't have the opportunities she deserves," Mary confessed, her eyes on her daughter playing on the floor. Lucas felt a pang in his chest, but kept his true identity a secret. A sunny day at Sunny Acres Ranch. While Lucas wrestled with organizing hay bales once again, Mary decided to stay nearby to help him. Alicia, meanwhile, sat under the shade of a nearby tree, playing with her doll. "So, Luke, where were you before you came here?" Mary asked casually, resting her hands on her hips. Lucas knew he had to tread carefully. He couldn't reveal his true background. "Oh, a big city, but I never really liked it there," he replied, trying to sound convincing. "I wanted a quieter place, somewhere I could breathe and learn new things." Mary gave him a sideways glance as if trying to decode his words. "Well, you'll get plenty of quiet here, but also a lot of hard work. Nothing comes for free around here," she said, her tone blending honesty with empathy. Lucas smiled, but her words weighed on him. He was used to a life where everything was handed to him. Yet here, every small accomplishment seemed to come from genuine effort. "You seem to handle it all so well," he said, shifting the focus to Mary. "Raising Alicia on your own and taking care of the farm. It must be tough." Mary sighed but kept her smile. "Sometimes it is, but Alicia is my strength. When I see her laugh, I forget the problems. And the farm, well, it's my second home. Everyone helps out here. Miss Elvira always says we're like family." Lucas felt a surge of admiration for Mary. She was far stronger and more inspiring than anyone he had met in his luxurious world. After a while, Mary had to return to her work. "Well, Luke, good luck with the hay bales. And remember, patience," she said, taking Alicia by the hand. "Thanks, Uncle Luke," Alicia said, waving enthusiastically as they walked away. Lucas stood there for a moment, watching them leave. Something about the simplicity of that scene touched him deeply. It wasn't just Mary's physical beauty that caught his attention, but her strength, humor, and the love she showed for her daughter. He picked up another bale and continued stacking, but his thoughts were far away. For the first time, Lucas felt there was something more valuable than cars, parties, and luxury trips. There was something here, on this farm, in this woman and her child, that he wanted to understand better. When night fell and Lucas finally returned to his quarters, he felt the exhaustion in his body, but his mind was restless. Lying on the improvised bed, staring at the wooden ceiling, he listened to the sounds of the farm filling the silence. His thoughts wandered between images of Mary and memories of his previous life. He thought about the parties, the women, the cars, and the private jet trips. He remembered how everyone around him always flattered him, but never made him feel anything real. All of that, which once seemed so valuable, now felt hollow. None of that compares to what I'm feeling now, he thought. Here. This is real. With that thought, Lucas closed his eyes, feeling for the first time in a long while that his life was starting to make sense. The sun had barely risen when Lucas was startled awake by firm knocks on the door of his quarters. Sitting up groggily on his makeshift bed, he recognized the deep voice of Logan, the farm's foreman, calling out to him. "Luke, get up. Miss Elvira wants to speak with you," Logan said firmly, leaving no room for questions. A chill ran down Lucas's spine. He quickly got up, threw on a worn shirt and jeans, and slipped into his scuffed boots. Running a hand through his hair to make himself look more presentable, he stepped out and headed toward the farmhouse. The house was both imposing and inviting. Made of sturdy wood, with wide porches and surrounded by fruit trees, it felt like the heart of the farm. Climbing the steps to the entrance, his heart raced as he was guided to Miss Elvira's office by one of the staff. Hesitant, he stepped inside, feeling slightly overwhelmed. Miss Elvira sat behind a robust wooden desk, her expression calm but commanding. She was a woman of serene demeanor, her gray hair neatly styled, and her sharp eyes seemed to see right through him. "Lucas, have a seat," she said, motioning to a chair across from her desk. Her use of his real name instantly put him on edge. As he sat, she got straight to the point. "Lucas, are you enjoying the work here?" The question sounded innocent, but her tone suggested otherwise. Lucas hesitated briefly, carefully choosing his words. "Yes, Miss Elvira. It's different, harder than the work I used to do, but I'm enjoying it." Miss Elvira clasped her hands on the desk and fixed him with a steady gaze. "I want to know, has your perspective on life in the countryside changed?" Lucas felt a wave of unease wash over him. Her tone was laden with meaning, but he wasn't sure where this conversation was headed. "Yes, ma'am," he replied cautiously. "I've learned a lot about how things work here." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking onto his. "Lucas, did you really think I'd let someone work here without looking into their background?" she asked with a disarming calm. Before he could respond, she continued, "You wouldn't do that at your resort, would you?" Lucas's throat tightened, and he felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The plan he had thought was foolproof had been uncovered. He didn't know whether to deny everything, apologize, or flee. "Miss Elvira, I can explain," he stammered, but she raised a hand to stop him. "There's no need to justify yourself, son," she said, her tone softening. "When you arrived, I sensed there was something different about you. It wasn't hard to figure out who you really are. But what intrigued me was why someone like you would want to blend in here." He lowered his gaze, feeling exposed. Miss Elvira continued, now with a maternal gentleness in her voice. "You're welcome to work here and learn what this life is about. But I want you to be careful, not with the work itself, but with people, with their feelings." Lucas's heart raced as her words struck a chord. He knew exactly who she was talking about, Mary. Her image flashed through his mind, her warm smile, her unshakable strength. In that moment, he realized just how much he cared for her. "I didn't mean to deceive anyone," Lucas said, meeting Miss Elvira's gaze. "I just wanted to understand what it means to live like this without all the things I've always had. And Please don't reveal my identity to anyone. I promise to be a good worker." Miss Elvira studied him in silence for a long moment, as if weighing every word he had said. Lucas felt the weight of her gaze, almost as if she were looking into his soul. Finally, she spoke with a serene smile. "Don't worry, son. Your secret is safe with me. But remember, everyone here has their own battles. Respect them." Lucas exhaled deeply, feeling some of the tension ease. "Thank you, Miss Elvira. I promise I won't let you down." She nodded and gestured toward the door. "You'd better get back to work, Lucas. The day has only just begun." As he stepped out of the house, the fresh breeze of the countryside brushed against his face. Walking back toward the barn, his mind was racing. He thought about Miss Elvira's words and what they meant. She was right. He was becoming more entangled than he had planned, especially when it came to Mary. He glanced around at the workers, at the simplicity of the farm, and realized how much his perspective was shifting. The luxury of his former life felt increasingly distant. Yet one question lingered in his mind. How would Mary react if she ever found out the truth about him? Lucas sighed, forcing himself to focus on the present. For now, all he could do was continue working, learning, and, most importantly, respecting the people around him. Deep down, though, he knew he wasn't just here to learn about life on the farm. He was learning about himself, and about love. And most of all, he was learning about Mary. Lucas had spent weeks at Sunny Acres Ranch, immersing himself in rural life and, more importantly, getting to know the people who called the place home. Gradually, he began to understand the community and the depth of its roots. The stories shared over dinner or during work were rich in meaning and brimming with love for the land. The workers didn't see the ranch as merely a source of income. It was a part of who they were. Lucas knew the original plan to transform the ranch into a luxury resort would destroy all of that. He felt torn between his role as a businessman and his newfound understanding of the importance of this place. Yet he also knew time was running out. Sooner or later, he'd have to return to his life of luxury and face the reality that his disguise couldn't last forever. One of the most anticipated traditions among the residents was the annual Harvest Festival. It was a time for celebration, with music, dancing, and plenty of food. Lucas, or Luke, as everyone called him, was helping set up tables when Alicia appeared. "Uncle Luke, are you going to dance with us tonight?" she asked, her eyes shining with excitement. Lucas smiled. "I'll try. But if I step on your toes, promise you won't get mad?" Alicia giggled. "I'll teach you. It's easy." Mary, standing nearby, watched the interaction with a small smile. There was something about Lucas she couldn't quite put her finger on. He was kind, hard-working, and seemed genuine, but at the same time, she sensed there was something he wasn't sharing. Whenever she tried to push the thought aside, something new would arise to reinforce her suspicion. During the festival, Miss Elvira called Lucas aside to deal with a minor issue involving a food delivery for the event. As he stepped away to resolve it, his hidden cell phone rang, a call from an executive at his luxury resort chain in the Maldives. "Yes, everything's fine here. No, it's not time to move forward with the project yet. I need more time to assess the situation," he said. Unbeknownst to him, Alicia, curious as always, had been playing nearby and overheard the conversation. When Lucas ended the call, she appeared at his side. "Uncle Luke, why do you talk like that? Are you rich?" she asked with the innocent bluntness of a child. Lucas froze. Before he could think of an answer, Mary appeared, having overheard Alicia's question and noticed the expensive phone in Lucas's hand. Something clicked in her mind. "Who are you, really?" she asked, her tone serious as she crossed her arms and stared directly at him. Lucas felt his heart race. The moment he'd been dreading had arrived, and he knew he couldn't lie to Mary anymore. "Mary, He hesitated, but knew he had to be honest. "My real name is Lucas Montenegro. I own a chain of resorts. I came here because I wanted to understand how you live, how this community works, before turning this ranch into a development." Mary's eyes widened in disbelief. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. "You came here to deceive us? To spy on us? I knew something was off, but I never imagined this. No, Mary, it's not like that, Lucas said, his voice desperate. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I wanted to understand, to do something different. And after meeting you all, I realized this place is so much more than just land. I want to find a way to respect that. She shook her head, visibly shaken. Lucas, you lied to all of us. To me. How do you expect me to trust you now? Mary, I never wanted to hurt you, he said softly, almost pleading. Please, just hear me out. But Mary took a step back. I don't want to hear it. You don't understand what you've done. Leave, Lucas. The finality in Mary's voice hit Lucas like a blow. He wanted to say more, but he knew it wasn't the time. The curious stares of the other residents began turning toward him, sensing something was wrong. Lucas left the festival, his head hung low, feeling more lost than ever. As he walked back to his quarters, each step felt heavier than the last. He knew he had hurt Mary, and feared he might never be able to fix it. Back in his quarters, Lucas sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the phone still in his hand. He could easily call his team and proceed with the original plan. But the thought of destroying this place and further hurting these people now felt unbearable. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. His thoughts swirled around Mary, the pain and disappointment in her eyes. He thought of Alicia, so innocent yet already starting to grasp the complexities of the world. And he thought of himself, of how much he had changed since arriving here. He realized he was tired of living a superficial life, where everything was easy, but nothing was real. For the first time, he wanted to do something meaningful, something that wasn't just about profit, but about genuine impact. But the question that haunted him was, had he already done too much damage to make things right? Elsewhere on the ranch, Mary sat under the shade of a tree, her thoughts a storm of emotions. She couldn't understand how Lucas could have done this. Before his revelation, she had reluctantly come to terms with the feelings that had grown since their first encounter. Feelings she had tried to ignore, but that had only deepened with each conversation, each shared smile. But now, everything seemed to have crumbled. They were from completely different worlds, and worse, he had deceived her. The man she had started to fall for wasn't who he said he was, and that realization made her heart ache even more. Back in his luxurious life, Lucas Jones felt like a stranger in his own world. The glamorous parties, private jet trips, and superficial encounters with his elite social circle no longer brought him any joy. For the first time, he understood what could fill the emptiness he had always felt, his love for Mary. Now he knew that feeling. Thinking of her made his heart race, but it also hurt knowing he had let her down. Lucas spent hours in his penthouse, gazing at the city through the window, a forgotten glass of whiskey in his hand. He knew he couldn't abandon his business life entirely. His resort empire supported thousands of families and couldn't simply stop. But something within him had changed, and he couldn't ignore it. He decided that if Mary loved him the way he hoped, they could build a life together. He imagined a future where she and Alicia lived in one of his resorts, enjoying comfort, security, and everything they had ever needed. To Lucas, it seemed like a good plan, almost perfect. But a persistent doubt haunted him. Would Mary accept it? Moreover, he knew he needed to make amends for the mistakes he had made regarding the ranch. It wasn't just about Mary anymore. It was also about the community and everything he had learned there. Lucas made a decision. He would completely redesign the resort project to preserve the essence of the ranch and benefit its residents. Days later, Lucas returned to Sunny Acres Ranch. But this time, he wasn't in disguise. He wore a simple shirt, but his posture and presence made it clear who he really was. As he arrived, he was met with wary glances. Some residents whispered among themselves, while others openly stared. Logan, the foreman, was the first to speak. "So, the boss decided to show up again? What now? Gonna buy everything and kick us out?" Lucas took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Logan, I know I made mistakes, but I'm here to fix them. Please, give me a chance to explain." Logan scoffed but shrugged. "Not my decision. Talk to Miss Elvira and the folks. Miss Elvira organized a meeting with the ranch residents in the main hall of the property. Lucas knew it would be a difficult moment, but he was prepared. As he entered the room, he saw Mary at the back, with Alicia by her side. Her gaze was cold and distant, and it hurt more than he had expected. "Good morning, everyone," Lucas began, his voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. "I know I don't deserve your trust after what I did. I came here disguised, trying to understand your lives, and I ended up hurting people who didn't deserve it, especially Mary." He paused, looking directly at her. Mary avoided his gaze but didn't leave the room. "I'm here because I want to make things right," Lucas continued. "The original plan to turn the ranch into a luxury resort has been canceled. Instead, I want to propose a project that preserves the history of this place and brings benefits to all of you." Murmurs began to ripple through the room, but Lucas raised his hand to ask for silence. "The idea is to build a school here for the community's children, and also a cultural center to preserve the stories and traditions you've shared with me. The historic areas of the ranch will be maintained, and tourism will be developed sustainably with everyone's involvement." When the meeting ended, the residents were divided. Some were impressed by Lucas's sincerity in the new project, while others still harbored resentment. Mary was one of the last to leave, and Lucas seized the opportunity to approach her. "Mary, can we talk?" he asked, his voice low and hesitant. She crossed her arms, staring at him firmly. "You already said what you wanted to all of us. What more is there to say?" Lucas stepped closer. "I need to tell you something personal, not as a businessman, but as Lucas, the man you knew. Mary, I fell in love with you. From the very first moment, I felt something special. I didn't plan this, but it happened, and I can't imagine my life without you and Alicia." Mary let out a humorless laugh, shaking her head. "You think just because you're rich and powerful, you can say pretty words and everything will be fine? Lucas, you lied to me, pretended to be someone you weren't. How can I trust you again?" "I know I made mistakes," he said, sincerity shining in his eyes. "But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust again. If you give me a chance, I'll prove I'm telling the truth." Mary studied him for a long moment, her gaze softening slightly. "Lucas, you come from a world completely different from mine. I'm just a simple woman, raising my daughter the best I can. I don't know if I can be part of your life." Before Lucas could respond, Alicia came running over. "Mommy, is Uncle Luke staying here again?" she asked, her eyes bright with anticipation. Mary sighed, but before she could say anything, Lucas crouched to meet Alicia's eye level. "I'd like to stay, Alicia, but only if your mom lets me." The little girl looked at her mother, who rolled her eyes. "Let's take it slow, Lucas," Mary said. "You've got a long way to go." Lucas smiled, feeling a spark of hope. "I won't give up." In the days that followed, Lucas began implementing the new project for the ranch. He worked alongside the residents, gradually earning the trust of those who still doubted his intentions. Mary, though hesitant, started to see the sincerity in his actions. Slowly, she allowed Lucas to get closer again, though cautiously. One sunny and warm Saturday morning, Lucas Jones woke up in his penthouse with his heart racing and a decision firmly made. Today is the day. I can't live without Mary anymore. The distance and doubt had been consuming him, and it was time to act. He put on simple clothes, grabbed the keys to his truck, and set off on the long drive to Sunny Acres Ranch. As he drove, his mind was filled with memories. Mary's smile, Alicia's infectious laughter, and the lessons he had learned on that farm. He knew he wasn't perfect, but he wanted to try. He wanted a life with her. When Lucas arrived at the ranch, the earthy scent and the sound of birds greeted him like old friends. He parked his truck near Mary's house and stepped out, feeling adrenaline coursing through his veins. Each step toward the door felt heavier, but he didn't hesitate. Lucas knocked on the door and waited. The sound of hurried footsteps came from inside, and then the door opened. Mary stood there in a simple dress, her hair slightly messy, but to him, she looked like the most beautiful woman in the world. "Lucas?" Mary said, surprised to see him. Her expression was a mix of confusion and restrained emotion. Before Mary could say anything else, Lucas took a deep breath and, without thinking twice, began to speak. "I know I'm not perfect. I know we have a lot to learn about each other, but Mary, I love you. I've loved you since the moment I saw your picture, even before I met you. It was you who brought me here, who showed me this new world and taught me things I never imagined." Mary stood still, absorbing every word. Her eyes began to fill with tears, but she couldn't interrupt him. Lucas stepped closer, his gaze locked on hers. "I know we haven't even dated yet, but I don't need that to know how I feel. I want to build a life with you. I want a family, Mary. Me, you, and Alicia. I want to be part of your life. Mary, will you marry me?" The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Mary blinked a few times, the tears finally streaming down her face. She covered her mouth with her hand, unable to believe what she was hearing. Lucas, on the other hand, stood waiting with his heart in his hands, fearing he had been too impulsive. Suddenly, Mary stepped forward and hugged him tightly, burying her face in his chest. He felt her arms wrap around him, and the warmth of that embrace melted all his insecurities. "Yes," Mary whispered, her voice muffled by the hug. Then she looked up at him. "Yes, Lucas, I'll marry you." He smiled, feeling immense relief mixed with joy. "You've just made me the happiest man in the world," he said, gently cupping her face. On that sunny Saturday under the humble roof of Mary's house, Lucas felt he had finally found what he had always been searching for, a home built on love and sincerity. They still had much to learn together, but they were ready to take the first step as a family. And so a new chapter began for Lucas, Mary, and Alicia, a chapter full of challenges but also filled with love, hope, and promises of a bright future. We hope you enjoyed this story filled with emotions and twists. If you liked it and want to follow more engaging stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Every narrative is a new journey, and we're here to surprise you. Leave your comment letting us know your thoughts and share your suggestions for future stories. See you soon.